well, I can't make the same mistake again. I didn't review Sour, so I can't skip this album too. I've got to do one Olivia album, right? I can't skip both. But at the time, I did react to the track Traitor. So I have talked about Olivia on this channel before. Don't stress it, it's all good. But at the time, I sort of basically gave my overall thoughts on her as an artist. And basically sort of said, yeah, she's cool, she's good, but she ain't making music for me. This ain't music for me. And I don't like to treat music that way. You know, I've always been very all-rounded, well-rounded, an all-rounder, that kind of thing when it comes to music. I think music should be for everybody, regardless of what language it's in. You should enjoy all kinds of music, because if you don't, you're missing out. And I've championed this for years on this channel. I've been the champion of that idea, that mantra. I've always been a big fan of just liking anything regardless of what it is, as long as it's good, I guess. But with Olivia Rodrigo, my basic statement at the time, and it is pretty basic, was she just don't make music for me. This young teenage girl talking about breakups on every song just ain't made for somebody who isn't relating to that. And relatability when it comes to music is one separate conversation in itself anyway, because at the end of the day, again, I will say this, you don't really need to relate to stuff to like it. But with Olivia, given that she's so young and she is writing pretty simplistic songs about breakups, I just think with her, I can get what she's doing elsewhere by people similar to her age as well, by the way, and being done better elsewhere. And that's kind of what I felt about Sour. I still thought it was going to win Album of the Year at the Grammys though, so that was pretty shocking, but still, that was where I was at with Sour. And Guts is out now though, and she dropped some lead singles, the lead single being Vampire, and it sounded like she was doing something different. Not really, no, it was the same thing again. She's just writing breakup songs. But Bad Idea Right came out, and it was like, okay, the music sounds different this time. Okay, let's go. So I was actually kind of interested to see where Olivia would go, because I think in interviews leading up to this album, she was sort of saying that she was proud of what she'd done up until this point, and she was happy with what she was making, but she wanted to go a bit rockier. She wanted to be a bit more of a rock singer rather than being, you know, sort of relegated to just being any pop type singer, which is fine anyway. But I think she was kind of just implying that, look, I want to go a bit harder. And she has done that on Guts. I will say that. I will give her a lot of credit here, because some of these tracks do rock pretty hard. And it's pretty exciting to see that such a big artist in the mainstream world of music in 2023 is actually willing to make rock, because rock is just not even barely existent when it comes to charts, when it comes to influence on popular music nowadays. So I've got to commend her for making this type of stuff. And to be fair, on this album, these are some of the best tracks. All American Bitch. Satirical, silly, tongue-in-cheek, super Riot Girl influence, by the way. Like, if you've never listened to those Riot Girl bands from the 90s, I suggest you look it up, because if you like this kind of thing, you are bound to like what was coming out of that scene at the time. Those bands must be kicking themselves now, because they were super indie, super underground for years, and to see that 20 years later, well, more than 20 years later, someone is making this and is one of the biggest artists in the world, must be kind of a bit of a killer. Let's not go crazy here, man. That kind of must be a little bit annoying for them, but still super good. You can tell she's obviously pulling from that era too, even some like bratty pop rock from the 2000s as well, I think is coming through here. Bad Idea Right as well is a really strong track from this album, I would say. I think we've got some Wet Leg influence, honestly. This literally sounds like a Wet Leg song. Like, seriously, I don't know how on earth Olivia Rodrigo ended up here. But it's kind of fun, this track. I mean, it's super silly and tongue-in-cheek again with the lyrics. Because the first track is more about, like, beauty standards and satirical in that sense. But Bad Idea Right is more of, like, a satirical track in talking about how, you know that somebody's bad for you, but you might just accidentally end up in their bed. And it is a little silly, and it is fun. It's probably the funniest song she's actually ever made. A little tacky though, I will say, because so many girls out there will always be talking about how guys are terrible and they're bad for them and these awful guys that they see, and yet in the same sentence they're going to talk about how maybe I'll just send a text later and end up in his bed. Like, it's like you're bringing it on yourself. Come on. One of the biggest hits of the year, a UK #1 single for Olivia too, Vampire, which I think is a track that once you hit that 2:30 mark, it is an epic. It is an epic moment. I love that part of the track. I think the introductory sections of the song are, okay. Like, it starts off very Olivia Rodrigo, and I'm going to get onto this with some of these tracks where she just falls into the same habits that really drag this album down. And honestly, as much as I do like the song overall, I think it's good, I do wish that 2:30 came way earlier in the song, because it's a great moment. The pianos come mashing in. It sounds like something like Arcade Fire would have done back in their peak days. God, man, when they were good, they were good. And this track reminds me of when they were good. But lyrically is where we're going to kind of stumble upon a few issues throughout this album, where it's another kind of breakup song, but this time she's comparing the guy to a vampire. Ooh. And it's so like, yeah, you can tell she's still young. Like, come on, man, these lyrics. I think she was trying pretty hard to have her own moment, her own kind of new, like, established word with the fame fudger line that she says in quite an aggressive way. But the rest of the track, I still think is pretty derivative and doesn't really bring to the table any great ideas, honestly. Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl. What a title that song is, man. Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl. Like 5% of the population are going to relate to that title, man. But yeah, I think the track overall on this one similarly reads as quite immature. I think she's trying a bit too hard to be like hashtag relatable on this track, to be honest with you, because a lot of these lyrics feel very much like they're aimed at, high schoolers, or, I guess in the UK it would be more like secondary schoolers, but that's not the same sort of age range, I suppose. But it is that kind of teen relatability type stuff, and I think she's holding on to that a little bit, because I think she knows and is aware that her audience and her fan base is very much of that era, and these lyrics will relate to those people. It's just a bit like eye-rolly though, stepping outside is social suicide. It's like, I think the idea of the track, feeling anxious is valid, and feeling like you're sort of crumbling within yourself whenever you're going out and into the real world. It's very relatable for a lot of people. It's again, what I'm saying here is about the writing that I think just could be better. Then you've got like lines, all the guys I like are gay. It's just like, come on, man. Just amplifies the point I'm making even further. And it's just not true, is it? I can just totally imagine the conversation that she'd be having with her friends as well with this line too. Oh my God, can you believe it? All the guys that like are just gay. They're just all so gay. They're always gay. Courtney, come over here. Can you believe this? They're all just gay. Olivia, I know, me too. It's just a reminder that yes, while she has talent, we are gassing up somebody that writes lyrics like this at the end of the day, and it is just a bit tacky in places for me though. Logical, I think, is a strong track in what it's trying to do. I think, again, maybe with a few years down the line, I think she'd write a song like this and just pick better lyrics, because I think there's something to this. But then kind of talking about how love isn't logical. It's just stuff we've heard before. I think, for 20-year-old or 19-year-old or an 18-year-old, writing these lyrics, it's not bad. Like, you do have to take that into account. And certainly I wouldn't have been able to do that when I was 18. So I'm not like trying to be like, I'm better than you. That is not what I ever try and do on this channel. But I do think with time, we'll get songs like this and they will just be leagues better in terms of writing. And I think she'd probably acknowledge that herself too. I mean, there's lots of songwriters that, age with grace and start to really, really hone in their craft when it comes to their lyrics. It happens a lot. Get Him Back is kind of basically the same song as Bad Idea, right? Really, not that makes it bad, but it is still sort of touching on the same sort of motif really here, of this guy who was pretty bad. He keeps hitting on all her friends. He pretends he's, what is it, 6'2" when he's not or something. But at the end of the day, when it gets to the late nights and she's feeling sad, she does miss him a little bit, and it might be time to get him back, but all her friends will, you know, judge her if she does that. But at the same time, I think Get Him Back in this context does have two meanings, where it's like a bit of a revenge song. But I think deep down, it's more just about Olivia masking the fact that she wants to get him back, and she's trying to play it off as like a revenge anthem. I think it is just a bit of a put on, really. Love Is Embarrassing is a good track too. I am literally going from start to end with this track list here, aren't I? But yeah, this is a good track. I think we've got some like Block Party influence coming through here. The indie rock 2000s influence is so clear on this album, and I'm here for it, because these are some of the best tracks. That kind of 90s riot girl, alt girl sort of stuff is there too. And again, there's some of the best tracks. So when those influences come through, they are easily some of the best moments. It's just a shame that we're like, we keep getting interrupted with these like ballad tracks that are just fine. Like, they're just fine. I mentioned Logical, which might be one of the better ones, but they're just so, you know. I think she's very much sort of picking out influence from some like indie singer-songwriters from the past 5 or 6 years, which is pretty cool actually. I'm hearing some Phoebe Bridgers at times on this album. I wouldn't be surprised if she's a fan of her, and it just really comes through. Her vocals sound similar. Some of the like the whisperiness as well reminds me of some like indie singer-songwriters, like, you know, coming out of the 2010s into the 2020s. She's probably listening to that because she's young and a teenager and has grown up in the day and the age of, you know, having instant access to all kinds of music, and uses social media, that she probably has found a lot of these artists and is influenced by them because they're so easily accessible now, which is cool. But it's just very much, I've heard this done before. The Grudge being an example of that, where it just interrupts the flow of these kind of rockier tracks. But let's get to the big main event, because I hope you've stayed and stuck around for this review to get to this point, because I'm about to hit you with some passion, my friends. Passion. The best track on the album, and I'm going to stand and die on this hill and ride and die for this track as being her best song so far. Pretty Isn't Pretty. This track right here, man, is so good. This track is the shit. This is exactly what I think her music could be in the future, and will potentially be more of. Because similarly, like the first track, again, we're touching on beauty standards here with the lyrics, and we've heard her do this before, and that's fine, but there's just something so raw about this one. This is the one, my friend. It's the way she's singing these lines. Something feels different. It's not the same kind of ballady type moments that we've heard from her before. It's not the rockier, riotous moments either. It's somewhere in the sort of dreamy pop realm, if anything, having a bit of like a shoegaze influence on the instrumentation somewhere too. But goddamn, this track is so bloody good. I feel like this is going to be the one. You know, when, you know, the hits are going to keep hitting, right? You're going to have Vampire, you're going to have Driver's License, you're going to have Good For You. They're going to be massive. People are going to hear them on the radio, recognize them and like them, and want to see her play those at live shows, right? The hits are going to hit. But Pretty Isn't Pretty is that sleeper hit, where when all the dust settles, I'm telling you right now, this is going to be the fan favorite. This is going to be the one that the real fans go to her shows to see. Because when we're talking about relatability, god damn, this track hits really hard, and will hit hard for a lot of people, with the way she's just so much more mature on this track, tackling this subject. Talking about something that so many young girls, and even men too, like relate to across this world. That, you know, even if you feel good, you still like look in the mirror and there's just something that isn't quite right, and you're never gonna reach that ideal. And the way she touches on this subject is brilliant, and she is just killing it on this track, man. I'm very, very impressed with this song. I think it is quite easily her best, and the best on the album, man. And you know what? Like at first, cynically, I was a bit like, oh, come on, like Olivia Rodrigo, she's obviously so pretty. Like how can she be making a song like this? But then the cynicism died, and I was like, come on, man, let's be real here. Regardless of how pretty a woman is, every woman will go through this, and it's sad. It's sad. The ideals, the standards will always creep in, and you'll never feel good enough. And yeah, she says it a lot better than I do, but goddamn, I was very, very impressed with this track. So heartfelt, so powerful. It's brilliant. It's a really, really strong track for sure. Similarly as well to a song like Prom Queen by Beach Bunny, where that track is tackling like, you know, all similar types of topics in a much more painful way, actually. You know, even talking about eating disorders and stuff in that track too. If you've never listened to Beach Bunny's Prom Queen, go check that track out. Really, really heartbreaking song. But there are similarities to that in this track as well, where she's even talking about like not being able to eat birthday cakes and stuff anymore. Yeah, it's harrowing. It's really depressing, but she sells it so well. And the vocals toward the end, oh god, this is killer. This is where I'm hearing Olivia and I'm going, this is the future. This is what she could sound like further down the line. Songs like this could keep coming out and she could kill them, because musically and vocally and emotionally, this is top notch. So yeah, it's a shame we don't have this on every track, and it's a shame that the album is padded out with these random little ballads that sound like everything we've heard her do before, because there were so many songs on the first album that sounded like that. But the rockier direction and some of the lyrical ideas, like on Pretty Isn't Pretty, do elevate it to being a better album for me than Sour. So yeah, I'm okay with this album. I think there's still some way to go. The maturity still is on the rise for Olivia, but at this stage in her career, she's putting out decent music. It's fine. It's all right. It's a decent album. I think the potential, though, to be even better is certainly there. I think I'm being possibly harsh on this album in that sense, because I think I can see where she could be in a few years' time, and I want us to get there. It's getting friggin' dark, though. What the hell, man? It's not even like 8 o'clock in the UK right now, and I'm recording this review. So let's end it there before I ramble on even further. I'm going 6 out of 10. I apologise for the lighting, as I did not see this coming. But thank you for watching the review. If you have stuck around the whole time, I hope you did, to hear my passionate speech on Pretty Isn't Pretty and the overall album review too. If you agree, disagree, tell me your thoughts in the comments. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and have a good day. Goodbye.